Greetings, Dr. Mark Winton here from the Department of Criminal Justice at the University of Central Florida in beautiful Orlando, Florida. And in this video, I'd like to talk about a famous cold case that was solved, that was actually solved 40 years later. And this is the Golden State Killer case. The case of Joseph James DeAngelo, who was arrested in 2018 and was successfully prosecuted. And he was charged with multiple rapes and murders that he committed during the 1970s and the 1980s in California. And he was caught basically using forensic genetic genealogy. So let me talk a little bit about forensic genetic genealogy first, and we'll talk about the Golden State Killer case. But basically what you have here is the combination and teamwork of law enforcement and laboratories and genealogists, professional genealogists, all working together. So basically, if we look at the forensic genetic genealogy workflow, I'm going to rely on an article by Glenn, and Glenn in 2022 provides a wealth of information to talk about basically the workflow and just an overview. That first, a forensic sample is obtained from the suspect at a crime scene, just in the usual way. And then that sample is run through the CODIS system, the FBI's combined DNA index system, and that has profiles of known offenders. So they see if there's any matches. If there is, they take it from there. If there's not, then they can move to forensic genetic genealogy. And that's where a lab prepares a sample and then creates a data file that is uploaded into a commercial genealogy database. And the genealogist and the investigators look for matches that are then used to create family trees, and they also search records. And through those matches and research, they hope that a perpetrator, possible perpetrator, potential perpetrator is identified. And once they get that, suspect, basically, then what they have to do is they have to obtain a sample from that suspect and then see if that matches up when they compare it to the original DNA from the crime scene. And they would obtain that sample in a variety of ways, but they need to obtain that directly, knowing that that is the suspect's DNA sample. So how was the Golden State Killer caught? Well, DNA was collected at the crime scenes, but it didn't match in the NDIS database. And here I'm relying on a really thorough article by Wickenheiser in 2019. So I've put the references below in the comments section, so you can actually go and get these articles or look them up from a library. So I actually have those in the comment section, the references. So how was the Golden State Killer caught? Well, DNA, as I mentioned, was collected at the crime scenes, but didn't match. So they run that through the system, and they didn't come up with anything. So then the crime scene DNA was put into, was processed, and a file was created, a data file was created of that DNA that was entered into the GEDmatch genealogical website. And it actually matched to a relative, a fourth cousin. So then, using genealogical research and crime and knowledge about the crime scene and the suspect, DeAngelo became a primary suspect. The investigators then, talking like 40 years later, investigators obtained his DNA from a tissue that he discarded and also his car door handle. And they found that it matched to the crime scene DNA. And that's how they caught the Golden State Killer. Now, of course, there's a lot of ethical issues, and Wickenheiser 2019 provides detailed discussion. I'm going to just mention a few, and these include privacy and consent and adhering to company policies, the possibilities of errors and mistakes, and getting wrong people as suspects, and also trying to figure out what types of crimes or situations this should be used for. Now, right now, it's used in cases primarily sexual assault, homicide, and unidentified remains. So you can see the criminal justice investigatory possibilities here. So this has been going on since around 2018, which isn't that long ago. I'm going to predict that we're going to see this become much more popular. Now, right now, while making this video, we have the case of the mass murder that occurred in Idaho, and an arrest has been made in that case. There hasn't been a trial yet. I'm just going to say an arrest has been made in that case. My understanding is that they were able to figure out their suspect by using forensic genetic genealogy. Very similar to how they proceeded in the Golden State Killer case. It'll be interesting to watch that to see if that is detailed in the trial, or we get that information afterwards or at some point. So I'm thinking that we're going to see more of this, and as this addresses not only current cases that are being investigated, but also cold cases, and start to see some cold cases be solved. So think about this. Some of you may be very familiar with this area of genealogical research. Some of you may have spit into the tube, mailed off that sample. A couple weeks later, you log on to the genealogy company site, and you find that you are connected to 10,000, 20,000 or more people, your relatives. And that can range from a parent, child, sibling, aunts, uncles, grandparents, distant cousins. And again, one of the interesting features, a lot of people like using this in their genealogy research, because they can start looking at building their family trees and really branching them out. Some people have trees with over 1,000 family members on them. And you also can contact people who you may not be familiar with, because it has contact, either their email or contact through the actual company. I do want to mention that not all the companies allow law enforcement to use their database, and there may be an opt-in, opt-out feature as well. But some of the more popular ones right now, as I speak, do not allow this forensic genetic genealogy process to be used using their databases. And there is one that does have an opt-in, opt-out. So, of course, I'm not going to mention any names, because you'd have to really read the company policy on that, and that can change. That can change, perhaps. So, interesting to keep watching that. But then you find out that there's other features as well. As we get more complex, if you're into the genealogical research, this is an amazing tool. And now this same tool has become one used by criminal justice professionals. So keep watching for this, see what happens, and we'll see how this case plays out in Idaho, and how forensic genetic genealogy might be a key in this case. Thank you.